Hi, everybody. Hey.
Hi.
Right over here.
This side, please, Joe.
One more to your right.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Joe, and this is my wife Marjorie,
Hello. Hi, Marjorie.
and welcome to VETSAID. And how can I help?
Does anybody have any questions, or would you like us to just talk a bit about the charity?
Yeah, why are you doing this? Go ahead, yeah. What's going on?
Why is this important?
Okay, well, the foundation of it is that I'm a Gold Star kid. My father died in 1949 in the Army Air Corps, and I was not quite 2 yet. So I never really knew him. But because of that, I'm resident to the Gold Star families. My grandparents and my stepfather, who became my father when I was about 7, Marjorie's father, were all World War II vets. And in talking to a lot of people my age, you know, our fathers never really talked about it. They never talked about it, and they didn't like war movies. They didn't ever watch war movies.
I just wanted to say one anecdote. One thing that struck a chord with Joe was my father, what was the Tom Hanks movie? Saving Private Ryan came out. And I remember wanting to take my father to see that, and him saying, no, I lived the real war, I won't go and see it. And Joe and I started talking about that, and we found common ground with regards to that. And our parents and older people don't want to go see war movies, us who haven't experienced. So we started talking that way, and I think one night you just said it's about time to start giving back.
Yeah, there's also the Vietnam War. I went to high school with a bunch of guys. I went to college. They eventually went to Vietnam. And they came back different people. And now, in the last 10 years, they're starting to get sick. And that's because of the exposure to Agent Orange, which stays in your body and later starts attacking your organs and your nervous system. And we are at war. We are at war. But it's a forgotten war over here. The media doesn't pay much attention to it. The government would rather we not know what's going on. But they're kids, and I can say kids because I'm 70. They're coming home shattered. It's a different war than we've ever fought. There's more critically injured people coming home than were killed in combat. There are more veteran suicides than were killed in combat. And I realized that making the transition from whatever that was back to civilian life for most of the vets is too high of a mountain to climb. And I thought, I'm in a position to do something about this. And I just can't. I can't see another vet standing beside the freeway with a cardboard sign. A homeless vet. There's nothing in place to help our troops when they come home.
Witness what just happened in Thousand Oaks, California. post-traumatic stress syndrome. How are we taking care of our vets, these people who go overseas into terrible wars that we no longer speak about because we're too busy worrying about the Russians and the this and the that, and they come back and we just do nothing. They're killing us here.
And he was interviewed. He was screaming out for help.
Yeah.
And they just put his file in the file cabinet.
And because Joe is always on tour, we're always touring, whether it be Joe Walsh solo or the Eagles, we're all over this country. And all over this country, we see vets that need help, that are homeless, that are forgotten. And Joe has decided at his age, and I stand behind him, and our son Christian, who is producing this event, we're giving back. That's what it is. He has celebrity, he can give back. And he gets to pick up the phone and call people that he's worked with in his 40 plus, how many are there?
You know,
And they say yes, and they're here, and they're so happy.
it's really awkward to ask, you know, other musicians to come, but I just picked up the phone and did it. I didn't think anybody would come, but, you know, the other part of it is if everybody comes, that's another train wreck. But everybody's usually at this time of year on tour and can't do it, or is not on tour and doesn't have a band in place. But Chris, Stapleton, and James, and you know, Don came to me and said, "Hey, you helped me with Walden Wood. I owe you one." You know. And HAIM is a great three-piece girl band. Wait till you see their show.
And they are so excited.
And this is the first time they've ever played anywhere except their parents' garage.
No. Yes. And they're so excited. I just want to say too that and Ringo's going to be here tonight. And yes, he's family, but apart from that, he cares. He's here because he cares. He's British. Now he's married to my sister, which makes him half American, but he wants to give back.
Yeah, he said, I gotta come.
Yeah.
You know,
And they're happy.
Go ahead.
Joe, how did you happen to choose Tacoma? Well, I know we're a great big military spot, but do you know when someone here? Why did you choose Tacoma? There's so many different spots around the country.
Good question. Last year we did Fairfax, Virginia. We were aiming the awareness at Washington, and there's a lot of military presence in that part of the East Coast. We're going to have to figure this out. We thought this year we better do West Coast, and there's a huge base here. There's a huge Army Air Corps, and that's what my father was in.
And Navy.
Yeah,
Yes.
and Navy, yeah.
But that's what was important to Joe because of the huge airplanes here. But also, can Joe speak a moment about the job fair? Because we're not just flying through here like a circus, you know, with a bunch of musicians and raising money, and all the money goes to the vets. We're leaving employment here. We're bringing awareness, job fair. How many people got hired today? Do you know?
A lot. Alaska Airlines was one of the sponsors for this, and I'm grateful for them. They really made it easier. And Boeing jumped in also. And there's a lot of organizations and corporations that came today and set up an interview counter. And a lot of people got jobs today. And we'll continue to do that every year. I guess we'll go to the Midwest next year, maybe Houston or Chicago. Hopefully, you know, I didn't know how to do this. I've been at a lot of other people's events, so it's the second year, and it looks like we know what we're doing, and we almost do. But I'm grateful to Willie Nelson for Farm Aid and having a model to base this on.
We've tripled so far, just to say the revenue that we've raised since last year. So we are really proud of that.
Any other questions here?
Yeah, Joe, I know you got to tour the base. Was it today or yesterday, maybe?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell me a little bit about your experience there and some of the folks that you met? What were you hearing from the servicemen and women there?
Well, they thought because my father was in the Army Air Corps I might want to see some planes. And I saw the big guy, I think it's the C-16. It's the big supply plane that's huge. And the entire staff that runs that plane, between the captain and the guys that load it and empty it, and the guys that maintain it, there's an entire mobile hospital inside it with doctors and nurses. There's an entire bomb squad. I got to meet the bomb guys that disarm the IEDs. And everybody, I mean, they're so young, geez. But everybody is. I was amazingly impressed with the military and the job that these people are doing. And it was a real booster shot. It really was. I really had the feeling that the military has all of our backs. And one more thing I want to say is, between the West Coast and the East Coast, there's a huge amount of the Midwest. And I came across some vet organizations, smaller ones, run by Vietnam vets and stuff. And they're helping vets as much as they can, but they don't really have a budget. And those are the people that I want to keep going. So we check them out and look at what they've done, and we talk to vets who have been there, and we just check them out. And if they're the real thing, we fund them to keep going. Because if you're in Iowa and you're a vet, you're all alone, and that's the worst thing a vet can be. So tonight is about coming together and realizing, we don't want them to isolate. Realizing that they're part of a big family, and I feel really, really good about this. I've seen it go from like an idea I had to a real thing. And if you pretend like you know what you're doing, everybody thinks you know what you're doing.
And also I just want to say, we've seen the artists have come by one to say hi to Joe, and they're here and they've been rehearsing. And there hasn't been one of them that didn't have a tear in their eye. They are so happy to be here. Now, we tour a lot, and you usually don't see that in catering. People are, another show, another city. But these guys are all jacked up. It's emotional. It's wonderful.
Everybody knows a family or a vet that might be having trouble. And take a minute and at least thank them or talk to them and make sure they're okay. Okay?
Any other questions? We can take two more.
I just wanted to kind of clarify what you touched on earlier. As far as the revenue goes for this year, you said you tripled the revenue raised with this show from last year? Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
We'll have exact numbers tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't have a big operating budget.
Yeah, it's us two and our son.
Yeah. I mean, what we make is distributed to these little veteran organizations. We might be little, but we're mighty. There are some vet organizations that most of the money they make is spent running the organization, and that's okay in terms of public awareness, and that's okay in terms of lobbying Congress. But there's a lot of people trying to help that in the trenches, on a smaller scale. And those are the people that's important they keep going.
And also, just want to mention these artists that we have last year and this year, on a night like this, can be banking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're here for love and for free. And I get so emotional on that because, I don't know, it's just wonderful. We do show up for each other, everybody. If we get asked, if people ask for help, they show up.
And I'm so grateful to Chris and James Taylor and
HAIM, Ringo.
HAIM and Ringo. Drew Carey's here
Yeah.
too.
Wow.
Come on down! Drew was a Marine.
He's a Marine.
Marine Reserves for 9 years, and he just came to I don't know, maybe he'll do some improv
Yeah.
or say hello or something. But
And does everybody get to stay?
Can I say thanks? Thanks, Joe, to you, and been listening to you since
You're
the
very
James
welcome.
Gang, man, and the music you put out, and just for them to come here and do this, I think is incredible. I think it's just, wow.
you're very welcome.
It blows me away. So thank you.
we all.
Thank you.
So, with thanks, I want to make sure you have a chance to directly address Soldier Station here and veterans in the region. What do you want to make sure they hear directly from you on behalf of the other musicians?
Not forgotten. He wants to know for the VETS radio station, what's the message you
Oh,
want to
yeah,
send the vets
yeah,
directly?
for the Vets radio station.
Not forgotten.
I know you must be having a difficult time, but there are people who want to help, and there are people that are aware that you're having a difficult time. And it may be the hardest thing to do if you're having trouble. The phone may weigh 60 pounds, but pick it up and ask for help, and we'll help you. It's VETSAID.org, and if you see a vet, make sure they're okay. But I just want to tell the vets, thank you for your service. There's a lot of us in the music business that are aware of the sacrifices you made and the pain you must be feeling. And hang tough and just
Thank you.
tell somebody you're hurting. That's
Reach
the
out.
first step. And realize you're not alone, because that's the first step in healing.
And we do read VETSAID.org. It comes directly to us. And there are people here this evening that we have gotten here that wrote to VETSAID.org personally. So Joe sees it. He sees them all.
And we'll get on that radio show. Okay?
If we heard you correctly.
Yeah.
Good enough.
We'll be in touch. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy